Hey guys, Andy and Spoken Label back in the house. Yeah, Sunday evening. Yeah, and I'm quite wrapped up today, but thankfully it's got a bit warmer because we had some pretty shockingly cold temperatures earlier in the week in the UK. Oh, it was down about -5 or 6 at one point in the evening. It was, and I was on a couple of Zoom calls, bits and pieces on Wednesday, and it went down to -7. And that was perishing because it's a bit warmer today. Now we're over to. I would say probably a bit warmer part of the world today. We're off to southern France. Now, this is going to be a fascinating podcast this today because I've never done a podcast like this before. This is where we're doing, would you believe it, a true crime story. And this is something really, I've not done this genre before. But the lady in question, and I'll let her introduce herself in a second, we got connected through Instagram, I believe it was. And I dropped her a message, fascinated by this book we're going to be talking about. And then obviously we'll live to today. So, Katrina, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody? Obviously, before we go into this book, I think you better tell people a bit about your background because you've got lots of other bits and pieces on the go besides this book we're going to talk about today, haven't you?
Yes, exactly. Hi, Andy, and hi, everyone. It's really, really a pleasure for me to be on this podcast. I have never expected to be here, and it's pretty much an honor for me. So I'm Kateryna Kei, and it's spelled Kei, but I read it as K. And I am a fiction writer and an artist. And very luckily, this is not my main job. I consider it this way, at least, because I believe that this is how I can really have fun with it, have a blast with it, and do something that I'm really, really passionate about without any constraints, without any deadlines, things like that. And you have actually talked about it with someone else. I guess it was Hannah Perry. You have talked
Oh,
about it on your podcast, and you were also mentioning the same thing about the luck of being self-published and this freedom of really having fun without, like thinking about who will be my targeted audience and how should I adapt my art to this targeted audience. So I'm not against traditional publishing, not at all. And actually, I believe that these limitations probably are also very interesting. Like when you have to write in a certain genre with certain limitations and things like that, it can be very interesting and stimulating in terms of creativity. But I enjoy the process just as I'm living it through. So right now, I can say that writing for me is a hobby that I take very, very seriously, and I invest a lot of time in it. And then what else about me? Well, I am French. I'm from Marseille, from the south of France, but my books are mainly in English. My very first published book is actually a fiction story. This is like a fiction series called Raven Boy, and this is set. Especially the first two books are set in the Viking universe. And I actually published it and wrote it in English. And then I translated it into French.
oh,
So right now they're also available in French, but the first one was English. So it was just this choice. Then, well, in terms of how I came to write and to like do all this creative stuff, I can say that basically this is something that was here from the very beginning for me, from the childhood probably, because I was this girl who would come up with all the stories for all the games. And all the other children will come and just listen to my stories and just chime in and play along with this topic, whatever that I have chosen, this conflict, this tension, this things like that. And I remember that my favorite game was Barbie dolls because I would come up with all this, stories that were inspired by films, by books, by soap operas that we have seen. And I would just come up with this intrigue, with this conflict, and everyone would be just here listening. And then I would be like building it up so that my Barbie gets this charming prince coming. And then the
oh.
other the other children will be like, and then he fell in love with my doll. And I'd be like, what? This has been my charming prince. And I would be like, oh my God, no, you can have his brother. And she'd be like, no, I don't want his brother. So either I have this charming prince or I'm not having any charming prince and we just stop playing. So I had to come up with another charming prince. And all this, it was like a creative exercise. But at some point, well, I was just coming up with the stories like that and I loved it. But then when I was approximately 12 or something, toys were no longer an option because, we start growing up and people start looking at you weirdly if you say, yeah, I'm playing with my Barbie dolls. So I had to think about some other way to get the stories out because for me, this is like a process. when I have it in my head, it just has to come out at a certain point to burst out of me. And for that, I actually found that writing would be a very good way of doing it, even though I saw writers and poets as a profession that was not cool back then when I was a kid. And I was like, I will not do that. But then I was like, well, I love handwriting. I love this, this sensation, how your pen glides over the paper, especially if this paper is a good quality paper in a very cute looking notebook and things like that. I love this sensation. For me, just this sensation is so absolutely inspiring that, I mean, this syndrome of the blank page, this is not something that I have known of. Just because when I grab my favorite fountain pen and this wonderful notepad, I just start like writing there. Probably this will not be perfect, but I will be writing something. So it will not be blank. And I was like, yeah, why not? I should try and write my stories. And I started writing it like that just for myself. And I never even thought that one day I would probably come to publishing any of it. I was like, no, no, this is mine. I don't want, especially for my family. I never want for them to discover what I'm writing. This is why my first book was published in English and not in French. It's
Oh
like,
yeah,
and thanks
definitely
God,
relate to that.
up to today, only my sister has read it. Only.
Good. Well, I've got quite a bit of a family I have, and my brother's read a few of my poems.
Oh,
Thankfully, he's not coming to the more contentious material, so I know what you mean there. That's all I'm going to say for that. Now, obviously, like I said before, we're here today. This is something a bit different today for me and Katrina. I thought I'd lost you a second then, Katrina. Then, now what we're doing here is this is almost like our true crime podcast, isn't it? Really?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, I've got the book in front of me here, and people are wondering. Yes, and Katrina might correct me with my pronunciation in a moment because it's cobblers at the best of times, but it's the Hague Hostel, did you say, was it? Or have I done that wrong?
Yes, exactly.
Now, yes, now Hague Hostel. I'm going to let Katrina go into this more in a second. This is fascinating, the story, because although Katrina has published this book, people will notice on it, it's actually listed as the name Casey Adams. Yes, now that's not Katrina's name. Now, this makes it even more interesting because you've obviously done forward in the book, Katrina, and then you've done a bit of the background as well. But so this isn't your book, so I think we better tell people first of all what's going on here.
So this is actually not really a book because this is more than a book. This is an immersive experience. This is something that, of course, has some elements of fiction, but also has a true story as a basis of it. And this story actually comes from a diary that I have found one day in The Hague. A diary that was stolen from someone. It was a handwritten diary. And this diary had actually inside this story written by Casey Adams. And of course, the story was like so moving, so fantastic, so beautiful. I loved it. And I decided to find this guy because I was like, this story is precious for him. So he would probably want his diary back. Like he got his bag stolen, whatever, I don't know, probably his papers, probably his wallet was stolen, but then the thief just discarded the notebook because he decided, well, this was not interesting. But for me, this was the main treasure. And I basically started looking for this guy, for this Casey Adams, so that to give him this book back. But the thing is that no matter how hard I tried, I could not find this person. And my decision was to publish it in the hope that one day he might see it and recover it for himself or contact me and ask me to probably unpublish it or whatever. But the thing is that I was thinking like the story was already here and I loved it. And just to give you a small, probably sneak peek, there is a song that is part of this story. So the song, I found it as well, and it is available as well. You can download it from my website, whether you want to read the story or not, whether you want to dive into this immersive experience or not. But the thing is that I was thinking about how to like really showcase this story so that it would be shining with all of its facets. And I was thinking about it for quite a long time. And then this idea came to me. This is a diary. So, what does a diary represent for me? The most value that it represents is that it's actually handwritten. It's something that is so totally revealing and intimate, I would say, because someone has scratched out some words, probably written with a little bit more hurry, some words or some sentences, some poured his heart into it. I mean, his hand was sliding over this page. So for me, this is like such a precious element, such a revealing element. And I thought that if I publish it, it should be published as is, meaning handwritten.
Yeah,
Because
it
yes, of
does.
course you can type, but then it will you will lose this sensation of what
Yeah.
it
Now,
is.
let me
And
show people here, and also on the video side, and even YouTube and Instagram here. So I've got we having the book in front of me. You can see there, for example, on page, I think it's 94, actually. See there now. You look there, everybody. Yeah, you can see there, it's all handwritten. And this really is fascinating because I think what you've done here, Katrina, is I think it's really, really brave stuff, this. And I think it's the fact is it shows everything, warts and all. And it's absolutely incredible. I've never read a book like this before, to be honest, because you're definitely right. There's errors in it, and it's not perfect, but doing what you've done, it's shown everything the way it was written, and so you feel like you're straight in the middle of the. I won't say the word action. That's the wrong word for this, but you're straight in the middle of it. What's going on? And yeah, I think it's a fascinating book. So, what made you want to bring it out as a book?
well, I wanted to try and publish it so that to hopefully catch the attention of this guy, and if not, to make everyone discover this story. And I was thinking about it in terms of publishing, but also of showing that it is much more than a book, that there are things that are like around all this book. Let's say this experience of me retracing the steps of this guy, finding out because the Hague Hostel, it's actually a very real place, a hostel that exists in The Hague. And I did stay in there to discover everything and, just to feel this
Yeah,
atmosphere. Right now, it is no longer used as a hostel for the last couple of years because they rent the dorms to the students, but the dorms stay exactly the same. And this bar downstairs where Emily has written her song and played piano is still there. And they do organize some open mic nights, some performances and things like that. So you can basically come and visit it and things like that. And I was actually thinking about the fact that many people probably after having read this story, they would have the same sensation of going and retracing Casey's steps and finding out all of these places and probably like seeing it a little bit through Casey's eyes, experiencing it in this way. And on the other hand, I thought that this retracing experience will also be absolutely fascinating for people because it lets you discover probably the history and the stories, local stories of The Hague. Because for me, The Hague, well, I actually traveled there because I was working in Eurojust back then. I had this project with Eurojust. So basically, most people, me including, would think of The Hague as institutions. Institutions means boring. Whereas there is this history, there are some local gems, these beautiful spots that are in here. So many things to discover. And I just figured that if I provide this information, step-by-step information that I was gathering while retracing Casey's steps on my website, probably people would love to do the same, to go and follow this map and discover all these stories, local history, local gems, local recipes. I mean, all of these things
yeah,
to
brilliant.
really
Nice.
like immerse.
Yeah, it does definitely isn't. Now, if people look at your website, that gives more stuff that's actually in the book. Obviously,
Of
it
course.
needs to state first of all, like you actually tried how you tried searching for Casey, because you've done 5 steps on your website. So
Yes.
tell us about these steps and what you did. So, in case that way, then we can encourage people to go and look at your website as well and see what you've done.
Well, of course, the first thing what you do right now when you're trying to find someone, you go on social media, you start typing. So what I knew about this person is from the United States, from a certain region, he has a certain master degree, so probably he will be of a certain age, etc. So I start searching on Facebook, on Twitter, all the social media. When you find nothing on social media, you start posting things and asking like, I'm looking for this person. Does anyone know something? And some people would come up and just say, yeah, probably, or I'm just fascinated by your quest and I would like to help you out. And I actually also have some far, far, far away relatives in the United States, in California as well. And Casey's from California. So I actually asked them, like, would you please help me and just go there, probably on a road trip or whatever, and try to talk to locals and probably to put some posters, I don't know, in the old-fashioned way, some in the shops or whatever, to say that I'm looking for this guy because I've got his diary and I would like to give it back to him. But despite all the efforts of all these people who were trying to help me,
Yeah.
we didn't really find the real Casey. because, well, I know that I have this diary, and of course, we had some people showing up and saying that they were Casey, but I had to keep for myself some ways of checking whether this is a real person or not. So there are some things that I did not reveal that I would be able to ask this person, and if they can confirm, then they're the real person. But none of them was able to actually confirm. None of them passed the test. So
Mm. See, so this was really interesting. It's like, because you've not traced him yourself, like, and like you look at step three of your trace process, you traced the guy, traced Dan, didn't you?
yes,
DAAN. Now, what can you
yes.
reveal about that?
Well, I actually, well, after all these efforts were launched on social media, of course, I was like, I live in France, so I can go to The Hague and I can try and do some research in there. So I traveled to this hostel and, of course, discovered the whole place. And of course, I talked to the receptionist, and I actually tracked down this guy called Dan, who was working back then at the reception and who knew Casey. And he gave me some information. Of course, they also had this guest book there because this is like really, really a used hostel, the Hague Hostel. And they had some guests that would write some stuff down. They just let it for people. And they also have this photo wall in there. But on the photo wall, unfortunately, Casey wasn't there, but Dan was there, and some other people were there as well. But it was an interesting experience. And I actually found Casey's writing in the guest book. He said, like, thank you, something, a very brief message, but he didn't leave any other information in there.
Ooh.
So,
Now, step five, carrying on this, you've also, Dan advised you that Casey was going to visit, and my pronunciation is rubbish here, so I'm not even going to try and pronounce these, two beaches.
yes. Because there are beaches in The Hague and they're actually fantastic. And actually, well, after I have talked to Dan, Dan has explained to me what were the places that he suggested Casey would visit. And then, based on the story on Casey's diary, I basically went and followed this same road and discovered all these same places. And I went to the beach, and it's actually quite incredible because all the time that I traveled to Netherlands, it was so cold and it was so rainy that you would never think about going to the beach. But then I went to this beach and I was like, oh, this is actually so much worth the visit. It is beautiful. It is big, and they have many different things, like restaurants, cafes, things like that. They have some of the activities, zip wire, things like that people can discover. So it's actually a very good experience, especially probably given the fact that I'm from Marseille. So this is the south of France. We have these beaches and it's always warm and nice. And here you go to a place where it's not warm and nice, at least not always, and you have this beach and you have people enjoying it just as much. So you just kind of discover a different way of enjoying the beach if you just go there.
Oh, brilliant stuff. No, now obviously a crunch point in the book itself is Emily. I've got it's Emily or is it Emily? Have I got this right?
Emily, I guess you
Emily.
pronounce it in English the same as in
Yeah,
French.
yeah. I'm
Emily.
just thinking
Mhm.
it's Emily because I mentioned a young lady called Emily, and I don't want her thinking is this book's about her because she'll freak out. Well, it's not, right? So it's spelled differently. Okay. Now, obviously, we need to look at the story of Emily itself here, and like because I know you've tracked her mum down, didn't you? I seem to recall. Because if people look at the back of the book, obviously, like you said, is you track and Emily managed to record a song, didn't she?
Yes.
And it was a beautiful song. Like how did you track down the sound engineer with about this song?
Well, I actually went online, and online, the original video was not available because Dan's account got hacked, whatever. So he received this message, error message, the video was deleted. But some other people had this song available, and I actually tracked them down. And then little by little, because I'm in France as well, I was able to go and find where Emily lived and where her mom lived as well. And I talked to her mom in here in
Wow,
France, and
wow,
yeah, she has this family that her parents divorced and then her mom remarried. So she has this many siblings from different fathers. But her mom was like very protective of Emily. And Emily herself was this person who did not, she actually believed in the uh, momentarily aspect of art, I would say, the art that is lived through right there in the moment, that shouldn't be recorded but experienced as
yeah.
it is. So she participated in a lot of live festivals. She has done many different recordings, but she all of her performances were basically live performances that were not really recorded. and only just fans would come and experience it and then go away. So it's kind of difficult to track down any like real recordings. But for the song, it was quite easy to track the sound engineer, to find who was working on it, and to get this version, final version of the song, because she has recorded the voice, she has sent it to the sound engineer, and
Yeah.
he basically has done all the rest of the work according to her requests, because they were, I guess they were friends, because they have been working for quite a while together.
Yeah, what's really sad about this is because you've provided other information, like she had actually done an album, hadn't she? And obviously, like because of the situation, the album's unfortunately has been discontinued now, and that's makes it a real tragedy because the song itself, you managed to share, it's a beautiful, beautiful song.
Yeah, the album has been discontinued, but I just learned that a couple of months ago, her brother, someone finally put the song on Spotify.
Oh,
So
did
it's
they?
actually available
Oh,
right now on Spotify as
brilliant.
well. Yeah, so that's a step forward. Because
Yeah,
I was advising her, I was like, well, you have this recording, so why not let your daughter live through this recording so that people could still
yeah,
discover her artwork?
yeah.
At the beginning, she was like, probably no, but right now, probably things changed for her.
Yeah, yeah, you don't know, do you? So, like I said, one song's out now, and obviously there is an album that was released called The Postcard. And like I said, it was like, and you've shared the cover on your on there on obviously on your website. Who's not to
Yes.
say the album might get released as a tribute to her sometime? And because there was a
Yeah.
really good little interview we shared on there as well, back from her as well.
Right. Yeah. So I'm hoping that it will get released because, well, apparently she was a very talented musician and a very talented girl. So this is what I advised to her family. But then, well, it's up to them, obviously. And I got the right to share her song because they allowed it to me, and because she actually wanted for this song to be shared for free. So it's available on my website. This is why people can download it for free and just share it and use it, well, knowing that this is copyrighted and this is Emily Lumiere, who is the author of this song. And hopefully for her album one day, it will also see the day and be sold once again. I don't know.
Fingers crossed. So yeah, that one. So, but like I said, it in relation to Casey, obviously, like, I don't want to give too much away what's exactly been happened in this story, but there is a there's still the underlying mystery, isn't there? Where
Of
did he go
course.
after this hostel? Now, I have to ask you, obviously, you've done your research, so you've not been able to trace him. Did you get any indications where he's gone after the hostel?
Well, as he's writing in the book, he traveled to Italy to finally meet his friend, and then the story stops in there in Italy, where he went to see his friend. So I suppose that after Italy, he was to go back to California to resume his studies, and hopefully that's what he did. But I wasn't able to trace all of that, and I wasn't able to find his friend either because, well, I don't have any last name or something. And despite all the advertisements and all the posters that were put on social media and things like that, he never showed himself. So,
Yeah, yeah, it makes it really tragedy, really, isn't it? When you've got something like this, 'cause it's an intimate, fascinating little journal. This is so a diary entry, and it's like I don't know about you, Katrina. If this had been me, I would have been heartbroken if I realized I left that behind somewhere. And some years ago, I ended up doing this. I stopped driving Ireland, Southern Ireland for about 2 weeks, and I log all my writings in like a hardback A5 books, and I left one behind, and I was heartbroken when I realised what I'd done. I thought I'd lost it at the airport, and my friends found it and posted it back to me about 6 months later when they found it on the back of the couch, and it was like just looking at that, I don't believe I've got this back. It's like. Casey's case here, wherever he is, everybody, anyone can help, please get in touch. Is like, I would be absolutely crushed.
same here. I mean, all of my notebooks, they are like my most precious possessions. When I'm traveling, despite my backpack, the one that you take into the plane,
Yeah,
is super heavy with all of this because this is like handwritten stuff and, hard covers and things like that. So it's like, it makes it super heavy, but I'm still carrying it with me on the plane
yeah,
because I just don't want to lose it because, like, if this gets lost, oh my God, this will be a real tragedy for me. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Listen,
Probably, well, my assumption would be that he might have seen the book or probably even got the book for himself and then just got the story back this way and decided to never ask for the diary so that to stay, hidden and unknown to anyone else. I don't know. This is just one of the assumptions, but I believe that if a person loves stories and writing and journaling and probably writing diaries like that, it means that all of this is meaningful for them. And he actually took the time to write it with his hand instead of, I don't know, recording a voice message or probably typing it on his computer.
Yeah, no, I agree completely with it. So now, obviously, there's not a lot else we can add about this book, but I want people to track this book down and obviously buy a copy on where you can get it from. So tell people where they can get hold of the book first of all.
Well, the book is available on all the internet platforms like Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and things like that. So you can get it from there. Obviously, you can go to my website if you want and click on it, but it will lead you to all of these platforms like Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, Books a Million, things like that. So all this very famous big platforms, because I'm self-publishing my books right now. I don't have any publisher, and this immersive experience, this book also got self-published, obviously.
That's what thing with the beauty of this book is. It's been self-published. It's a fascinating tribute to a young gentleman you never met. And like you said before, a lot of the information we've covered is all listed on your website. So that's
Of course.
why. So it adds to the mystery really, and it gives definitely right the experience of it is like I really felt like I got to know him for all these extra bits of information to put on there that aren't necessary in the book. Now, what you've done here is there's one thing we've not touched on in the back of the book is the QR code.
Yes.
Yeah, you better tell people the QR code. We have talked about this already, but the QR code is a nice touch.
So there is this QR code, and when you scan it, you will get to the page where you can download Emily's song. You can listen to it and download. I put both of them, both the YouTube version where you can listen. Also, there is the link to Spotify because I discovered that they have put it on Spotify as well. And the two links that you can download it, meaning the MP3 and the WAV format, because I've got both. So this QR code basically allows anyone who wants to discover the song and to then listen, share, whatever people would like. And because, well, the song, as I have said, is part of the story as well, and it also makes this immersive experience immersive in a different way because
Oh,
people
yeah.
can not just touch but also listen.
Yeah, definite. Definite of it. No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant, absolutely. That's why I think it's really added the full flavour in this one, it has, Kateryna. Now, obviously, that's all I want to ask you about this book. But obviously, in relation to yourself, we have to ask is obviously, because you've said already you wrote other books and other bits and pieces. What other projects independent of this book have you got ongoing at the moment? Is there anything you can reveal?
Well, I actually am this person, and this is also a good point that I'm self-published because I'm a chaotic person, meaning that I start working on one of the projects and then, there's something happens that inspires you another story, and you just like, I have to write it down, otherwise it will be gone like forever. I will lose it, and then it will be a disaster. So I just start like putting the first project on hold and writing down the second one. Probably this writing down brief stuff will last for a couple of months because it will not be as brief as I have expected for it to be, but it just needs to be done. And it actually happens that right now I have something like 5 or 6 projects that are ongoing, on hold like that,
Oh,
waiting to be developed.
brilliant. Brilliant.
Yes,
Join the
of
club.
course.
Join the club. Like I said, I've often got 5 or 6 projects on the go. It's chaotically
Yeah.
organised, but it stops you getting bored, doesn't it? So,
Yeah, but I think this is also a beauty of it because I guess every project, at least for me, for the creative process, you write something down because you have this idea and everything, and then it has to rest for some time, and then you have to revisit it. And when you revisit it, you probably can correct some things or just do something additional to it that will make it better. So it just kind of has to mature in this way, I think. And this way, I find that if you have this chaotic approach with many things going on, you can go from one project to another. First of all, you will never lose this inspiration because if one project does not move forward anymore, you just go to another one. And that's exciting. And you just move it forward a little bit. And then you go back to the original one, the one that is like your priority, that you have to move forward a little bit more.
yeah.
So I think that this is actually the beauty of this process because it allows you like to have this not that much focused approach on something in particular, but a more holistic approach and a more interesting approach in this sense. But then, of course, well, you have to prioritize, and you will be like one of these projects has to be probably moved forward a little bit faster than the others. And right now, I have one of them that I'm working on in particular more than on the others, of course, as all the time. And it's just a very beginning, probably the very first stages for this project. So it's like handwriting and handwriting, like at the very beginning of it, because I'm doing everything by handwriting. I know that this
Oh,
is not time savvy like at all, because later you have to type it and things like that. But otherwise, I just cannot. I just cannot type it right away. I have to handwrite, and then I will be retyping the whole thing. So the first stage is handwriting, and right now I'm at 3 full notebooks, but this is just the beginning of it, I guess, because there are many corrections and things that get crossed out and stuff like that. So this is why I cannot really say much about it, apart from the fact that this will be historical, this will be time travel, and this story, the inspiration I got from my trip to South Korea. So it's going to be totally different.
yeah, it's showing just different strings to your bow, as I always say, definitely with that. So, no,
Of
brilliant.
course.
No, good luck with it, definitely with that. So, it keeps us
Thank you.
informed, definitely. Now, obviously, social media time for yourself. Obviously, you've said already that the Casey's book is already on Amazon. I know you've got other books knocking on yourself and so people can buy as well, haven't you, as well? So,
Yes, of course. I have, well, this my first project, the book series. Well, right now the 2 books are out. The third one is still in process. The series that are called Raven Boy, and this one is also available, also self-published, but this one is available both in English and in French. The first 2 books, and they are also available everywhere online. And my main place where all the informations are is my website, obviously, and that's katerynakei.com. So everything is in there. Then social media, yes, I am present on Instagram as well and a little bit on Facebook, but right now I try to stay a little bit away from it. Not because I don't like it, but because I believe that this is very much time consuming. So I'm just trying to turn it into a meaningful experience. When I go to social media, I try to do it to really look at people who mean something to me, who are interesting to me. Like I'm following you on social media, so every time I connect, I go and I see what is the new episode
yeah,
of this podcast that is out there that I have to write down for myself to listen to, to put on my to-do list. And there is another couple of people just like you, some authors that I appreciate a lot and that I follow. So I mainly use social media for that and not for advertisement or for like showing up myself and things like that.
yeah, no.
So all the information about me is mostly on my website.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, well, that's all my questions today anyway. So people are wondering, me and Katrina are going to chat for a bit more yet because I'm curious, a bit more curious about Casey, and I'm not the stuff I want to ask that I'm not going to ask on recording, right? That's why. So, but listen, Katrina, it's been a pleasure today. Thank you very much for a most unexpected and certainly unusual podcast. I've really enjoyed this today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me. Like, really, I did enjoy it very much.
Okay, right. Okay, people. Yeah, that's it today from Spoken Label again. Thanks to Katrina for today. It's been a pleasure. So, as Don Callis over at AEW Wrestling says, stay safe and more importantly, stay over. And we will see you all next